A lot of us live our lives stuck in limbo. We are constantly going forward, then going back, going forward, and then going back. In fact, a lot of us take 2 steps back, all because of one thing, and that is our fear. Our fear to move forward, our fear of success itself. A lot of us, we think that we're fearless, we think that we can do anything, yet A, we've never tested ourselves, and B, we don't really understand what it takes to become that person we've always wanted to become. And so because we don't understand, we have this creation, this illusion of fear that we build around that goal we want to reach. You want to become the richest person in your neighborhood, but you have fear that everyone will reject you, everyone will hate you after that. You want to approach this person because you think they're attractive, but you have fear that they'll reject you. You want to boss up in school and you want to fight, you want to make it to the top of your class, but you have fear that a lot of your friends will reject you. Why do we have this fear? Why is fear stopping us from becoming the person we've always wanted to become? My friend, if this or whatever I said before has anything to do with you, then I promise you this video is for you. So without further ado, let's crack into this video. So, a lot of us think that we don't want fear, but we don't even understand what it is and why we have it. A lot of us, we want to learn how to overcome it, but as you know me, you have to understand exactly what you are overcoming, and you have to understand why you're overcoming it before you can actually overcome it. So fear is the word we use to explain any intense, strong emotional reaction we have to perceived danger or to danger itself. So when you see something that might hurt you, or you see something that's hurt you in the past and you want to avoid it, then you're probably going to use the word fear, or you're probably going to feel this intense emotion. Next, I'm going to give you a couple truths about fear. Some of them may be a shocker to you, some of them may be very surprising, and some of them may just make a lot of sense to you. All right, but whatever you do, just keep focused and make sure you're taking notes. The first truth you need to understand is fear is essential. And I know a lot of you are already looking away or throwing your remotes at the screen, but it's true. Fear is essential because it protects us from potential danger that we see in our eyes as something that is life-threatening, something that may end up hurting us in the future. So fear is the reason why we stay away from such things, such dangerous activities, such dangerous people even, because we don't want to end up hurting ourselves, being detrimental to ourselves, in the future. Number 2, fear is unavoidable. As humans, we have to feel fear. And I know a lot of you are already getting upset and already going to the comments and writing, AJ, this doesn't make any sense. But it's true. Fear is the reason why we can stay alive each day. And I know a lot of you aren't comfortable with this, but you have to understand it. Fear is designed in our brains to keep us away, as we've already said, from dangerous things. So my friend, if you want to learn how to overcome fear, if you want fear to stop being the captain in your life, if you want fear to stop being the star in your movie, if you want to start taking control of your life, then you have to understand that fear is unavoidable, and stop shaming yourself. Stop feeling shame when you get scared. It's okay. It's a human emotion. Every single one of us gets scared. If you don't, then how are you even human? Even the greatest people out there, Nelson Mandela, who fought for human rights in South Africa and against the regime of apartheid. He spent 27 years in prison. Do you think at any point of that he was completely not scared? No, he was scared. In fact, he was scared for most of the journey, but he probably pushed through that resistance, kept going. If you take the story of Harriet Tubman back in the 1800s as a political activist, and a former slave, or coming from the family of former slaves, she in America made numerous missions to save slaves from their slave owners and bring them up to the north where they could be free. She felt fear. At the time, if she was caught, she was killed on sight, because that's stealing their property. But she did not allow that to happen. She pushed through her resistance. She pushed through that fear. But you have to understand that in order to overcome fear, you have to accept that sometimes you will get scared. Sometimes fear will affect your mind, your decision making. Stop shaming yourself for that. Remember, if you want to overcome something, you have to accept it. Because if you don't accept it, if you don't accept that you're dealing with this problem, how will you overcome it? You have to understand fear is unavoidable. It's what makes us human. When you walk up in that social environment and you see everybody, the loud music's playing, or you walk into the business environments, you're surrounded by people that may be 2 times more intelligent than you. You're surrounded by rich people. You're surrounded by everybody. You have to understand that, hey, look, I'm scared right now. I fear. I feel that emotion of fear. What will I do from that? Yes, I'm scared. Yes, I'm nervous, but will I break through my resistance? My friend, that's what we should do on a day-to-day basis, even though we're scared. It's unavoidable. It's what makes us human. It is a human response in our brain that happens. In fact, I'm going to move on to the next part, which is the fight or flight response, right after this third truth about fear. So before I go into the fight or flight response that we hear a lot of in the media, I want to tell you about the third truth about fear. Fear comes from past experiences. Now, there's 2 ways you learn. As a human being, as you're growing up, there are 2 main ways that we learn. We either learn from our own personal experiences or we learn from the experiences of others. If your parents have been through certain experiences, they'll teach you how to avoid those experiences. On the other hand, if you experience something, you have learned from that. If somebody tells you don't put your hand on the stove and you put your hand on the stove, you have had a personal experience and you will feel fear when you go by the stove and you want to put your hand there. And that's good because it keeps you from getting hurt, of course. As we said before, fear is essential. But on the other hand, if somebody has, for instance, jumped off a moving car and has seriously injured themselves, you will know that you should not jump out a moving car. You haven't experienced that, but you'll know that you should not jump off or jump out of a moving car, a moving vehicle. A good example for this, for the idea of learning from others' experiences, is the story of Rapunzel. And if you're a big Disney fan, as I am, you will know the story of Rapunzel, the girl with the long hair that was locked in the tower. Basically, she was stolen by an evil stepmother, a witch, and she was hidden in a tower. And basically, the witch used the magic in Rapunzel's hair to keep herself young. So besides having this huge tower that the witch used to keep Rapunzel in, she used to tell Rapunzel constantly, every day, conditioning in her mind that if you step foot outside, you will die. Outside is a dangerous place. It has monsters and criminals and demons. Don't go outside. And so she built that fear from ever escaping, from ever going outside, just from what her mother has been telling her, her stepmother, her evil stepmother witch lady. It's a long story. If you watch the movie Tangled, then you'd know what I'm saying. So, how does our mind react to the stimulus of fear? So, for example, if you're walking in a dark alley and you see somebody getting beaten up in front of you, you will obviously feel fear. You'll feel like, hey, let me get out of here. Let me get out of this situation. But what really goes on in our brain when we feel fear? When we enter the social environments and we're very scared to be talking to, or we're very scared to go and introduce ourselves. When we enter the business environment and we're about to give a presentation or a pitch to our investors, we feel that fear, that heartbeat, our racing, our adrenaline pumping. What is going on in our heads? So the idea is you get a fight or flight response. Basically, the stimulus, this external stimulus that you're getting from outside of your brain, outside of your body, is telling you, hey, I am a threat. I am dangerous. Will you either fight me or will you run away? Your brain will get certain chemicals released into your amygdala, which will tell you to either fight, stay in there, keep going, fighting, or fly away. Run away, get out of that situation. And you've probably heard of these chemicals that get released to your amygdala in your brain. It's called adrenaline and noradrenaline. All right, noradrenaline is basically the chemical that will, cause you to fly away, and adrenaline will give you the energy, the power that you need to fight. And a lot of people have been doing a lot of crazy things when they have adrenaline in the systems. Like, there have been stories of people literally lifting up cars, or there have been stories of people, really just getting out of situations with superhuman strength because of their adrenaline. So when I say the physiological responses that you get to fear, I mean your physical, biological responses that you will get when somebody is being threatening or when somebody is threatening you. This includes shallow breath. You can't take these deep breaths, you're breathing like that. It also includes sweating, like you have droplets of sweat coming down because you're scared. You get very anxious. You'll probably have rapid heartbeat. A lot of us, we get these heart palpitations when we enter situations like that because your heart is trying to send as much blood into each body part as possible so you can either fight or fly away. You also start trembling. You may have noticed you get into a situation, maybe after we get into these situations and we have adrenaline in our systems and we overcome it, we're still shaking, we're still trembling over that, It sometimes happens. It's normal. It is a physiological response. And really, as I said before, it's unavoidable. You always have these responses. It all depends on whether you take action, whether you break through your resistance, then your responses, or these responses might decrease. You might have these responses at a later stage. So when it comes to social fears, there are two concepts you have to understand before I get to the solution. And before I get into the two main concepts that you need to understand in order to overcome fear, I just want to give a quick shout out to my website. Make sure that you just check out my website. If you want to speak directly to me, make sure you just go on my website, go to the contact us page, and you can fill in your details. I promise you, if you just want to speak directly to me, if you have any questions, any comments, any suggestions, I promise you, just go on my website. You can talk directly to me. I see all your messages, no matter how long it is. You can send me your life story and I'll read every single word of it, and you will be seen and you will be heard. So the first thing you need to understand about social fears is the idea of resistance. I'm going to ask you a question. Have you ever been in the position where you see somebody that you are interested in? You want to talk to them, maybe in a friendship way, maybe in a dating relationship way, but you're attracted to this person. You want to be around them, but you just can't do it. That invisible barrier that stops you from doing it. Maybe you're in a social environment like a party or at school or wherever you have to interact with a lot of people, and you want to let out your full personality, but you can't do it because of this invisible barrier that's just holding you back from letting out and letting go. That is resistance, my friend. Resistance is the psychological barrier you have in your head that's stopping you from getting to your success. Think of it like a wall. And every time you decide not to break through that wall, every time you decide not to break through your resistance, you're making that wall taller and taller and taller. And some of us, we walk around life with our walls reaching the sky because we don't understand how to break through it. So if you're a history nerd like I am, then you probably know the idea of
no man's land.
No man's land was basically the muddy, dense, thick or a stretch of land between two enemy bases. So if you were on one side of the team or one side of the war, then you're going to fight your enemy, your rival, which was on the other side of no man's land. And no man's land was horrible. It was the place where you were basically sent to die. No man's land was muddy. It was thick. Like imagine mud all the way up to your knees. You had to trudge through that. It was raining, and the Nazis had this weapon of chlorine gas. So no matter where you were constantly surrounded by death. You were in a hopeless situation if you had to cross no man's land. And what we'd have to do, or what the generals used to do, is they used to send waves of soldiers trying to cross no man's land. Because if you can cross no man's land with all the firing and the rain and the wind and the chlorine gas coming your way, then my friend, you will have an advantage. You will bring your whole team to the other side. That's the same thing as resistance. If you can break through resistance and get to the place you want it to be, you will have such an advantage. No man's land has a huge reputation for a lot of people dying. It has a very, very slim chance of success. And this was mainly because of all the factors that were put against you. If you never knew warfare, if you never knew how to get past there, if you weren't trained to do it, then you will have no way of getting past no man's land. It was horrible. Now, I liken this to resistance because a lot of people end up atrophying. They basically going back in life because they don't understand how to break through that wall of resistance. They don't understand how to make it past no man's land to the successful area they want to be in life. So they end up going back and going back and going back, and they become apathetic. They become pathetic. They lose their drift. They lose that idea. They lose their passion. Have you ever seen somebody in your life, maybe you look into their eyes and you look at them and they have no passion in their eyes. You can see they gave up on themselves. My friend, that is not you. By just watching this video, you are already stepping towards that area of life you've always wanted to reach. So if you enter a period where you are actually scared, you have resistance and not threatening your life, of course, get out of those situations. But if you're scared to meet someone new, if you're scared to pitch that idea to investors, if you're scared to enter the schooling environment and do your best, you have reached the wall of resistance, that psychological barrier of resistance. Now, you're faced with two choices. You can either break through that wall and grow and become better and make sure that wall shrinks into rubble, or you can go backwards, atrophy. If you don't know what atrophy means, it's basically when you don't use your muscles for a long time, your muscles become smaller and weaker. If you end up going backwards and atrophying, your resistance will become bigger. So we are obviously going to choose the breaking through resistance option. I have one method that my BUB Cool members have been using for the longest of time. If you've read my book, then you may know this method. And if you haven't, then that's okay. Just go down to the link in the description. You can buy my book on Amazon. I have it on Kindle. The pressure method is basically when you do exactly what you have been afraid of, what you have been fearing, to the exaggerated, fullest extent. If you are scared to meet one person, if you see that you're scared to just make one new friend in a day, go and meet 10 new people and see how many friends you make. This is when you are scared to meet that one girl or that one guy that you've been so afraid to talk to. Go and meet 10 other people of that same standard, and you'll be less afraid, or you won't even feel the need to do it anymore, because you've gone through that period of no man's land, that resistance period, and you've broken through to the other side. So my friend, if you can do one thing that you're afraid of every single day, and you can go through that pressure method, and in fact, if you can actually exaggerate it to the next level, you will see such growth in your life, unprecedented growth in your life. I am so excited for you. Thank you for watching this video. Honestly, I never take it lightly when you guys click and watch a video of mine, because I know that you're sacrificing your time, and time is money. And I honestly thank you that you've taken your time, basically your money, and invested in your growth, in your future.